Chapter 1. Upstairs at Graceland.
Graceland was a vortex. It had no rules, no laws. There were so many pranks. There was so much fun. I was up to God knows what. Honestly, God knows what. At any given time when I was there, I was mostly up to mischief. In whatever way I could cause it or have it happen. I was a daredevil. I was a true wild child.
I felt my father could change the weather. He was a god to me, a chosen human being. He had that thing where you could see his soul. If he was in a shitty mood, it was shitty outside. If it was storming, it was because he was about to go off. I believed back then that he could make it storm. Make him happy, make him laugh. That was my whole world. If I knew something was funny to him, I would do it as much as I could to get some mileage out of it, to entertain him. When we'd leave Graceland, the fans would always shout, "Elvis, Elvis," in their southern accents. I mocked someone doing it once, and he fell out laughing, just died. He thought that was the funniest thing he'd ever heard. Another time, I was lying in my hamburger-shaped bed, a huge black and white fur bed that had steps leading up to it. And he was sitting next to me in a chair, and I looked at him and said, "How much money do you have?" He fell out of the chair laughing. I couldn't figure out why that was so funny. I was super connected to him. Our closeness was a lot tighter than I have ever let on to anyone in the past. He loved me dearly and was totally devoted, 1,000% there for me as much as he could be, in spite of everyone around him. He gave me as much of himself as he possibly could, more than he could give anybody else. And yet, I feared him too. He was intense. You didn't want him to get angry with you. If I ever upset him, or if he was mad at me at all, it felt like everything was ending. I couldn't deal with that. When he got upset with me, I took it so personally, I was just shattered. I wanted his approval on everything. There was one time I popped my knee and he said, "Damn it, why'd you go and hurt yourself?" It devastated me. My mom was an Air Force brat. She met my dad at 14 and her parents allowed it. It was a different time. Back then, women were admitted into the hospital while they were in labor. They'd get knocked out and wake up with a baby. She went into the hospital looking glamorous, beautiful, and when she came to, she was just handed a child. My mother told me that she'd thought about trying to fall off her horse to cause a miscarriage. She didn't want to gain pregnancy weight. She thought that wouldn't be a good look for her as Elvis's wife. There were so many women after him, all of them beautiful. She wanted his undivided attention. She was so upset that she was pregnant that initially she'd only eat apples and eggs and never gained much weight. I was a pain in her ass immediately, and I always felt she didn't want me. I believe in energy in utero, so maybe I already felt her vibe of trying to get rid of me. Eventually, she just kind of decided to keep me. But at the time, she didn't have great maternal instincts. That might be what's wrong with me.
When I was little, I would often watch my mother do her makeup. There were 2 sinks in her bathroom, and in between them a huge vanity. My mother had more makeup than any little girl could dream of. MAC and Kevin Aucoin, drawers and drawers of brushes and lip pencils, eyeshadows, and the most famous of MAC lip colors, Spice. She would line her lips, the Cupid's bow she loved and that we all inherited from her father, looking into a small mirror on the vanity, and I thought they were so perfect. To me, she was the most beautiful woman in the world. I looked at her and said, "How old are you?" It was the first time her age had ever been something I'd considered. She laughed and said, "I'm 28. How young that was. My mom fundamentally felt she was broken, unlovable, not beautiful. There was a profound sense of unworthiness in her, and I could never really figure out why. I've spent my whole life trying to work out the answer. My mother was an incredibly complicated person and deeply misunderstood. In my family, there's a long history of young girls becoming mothers.